All right. Well, I hope you've learned something about the person that you didn't come in the car with, and encourage each and every one of us to check back in, hopefully before next week, but if you can't, try next Sabbath and see how your partner is doing. And let's continue to grow together as a family. And so, without further ado, we have a very special presentation and discussion brought to us by Brother Richard Dorsey.
Happy Sabbath afternoon. Yes, thank you. I hope everybody's not sleeping from the afternoon desserts and candies and cakes that we all didn't have, right? We didn't have that stuff, did we? No? You did? Yeah, okay, good. All right. So, before we get started, I want you guys to just do a thought exercise with me. Close your eyes, and I can see you, so close your eyes. Everybody close their eyes. And I want you to think of, you're not closing your eyes. And I want you to think of a place that you really enjoy being. And don't say, I'm not looking for you to say central, it's okay. Whether it's a happy place from your memory, a happy place from your adulthood, your childhood, I want you to think of that happy place and walk yourself in that place. Okay, everybody got it? Okay, I need 3 people to share with me their happy place. Just 3 people. 1. I need a second person. Don't make me pick you from the crowd. Okay, Brother Dor, come up. 1 more. I will pick on you. Come, sister. All right, what's your happy place?
In the kitchen.
Okay, what about the kitchen is a happy place for you?
Cooking.
Cooking. Why?
Because I can eat.
So the smell of food, cooking, your mommy cooking, tasting the food, all of that's a wonderful place for you, right? Okay, great. Elda, what's a happy place for you?
My happy place is somewhere that I had the opportunity to travel to several years ago. And even though I was there for 1 day, we made the best of it, and that's Paris.
Paris.
Paris, France. Very beautiful place. I was able to go to, many of you might know the tower, Eiffel Tower. Mm-hmm. I went to the highest level. And when you go up there, it looked like you could see the whole of Europe. I mean, it's just awesome. It's beautiful. Paris is very beautiful. I hope it's still beautiful. Very clean. Green grass is very nice. So.
And the people, how did the people interact with you?
Everything was good. Everything was good. The interaction was good. They could see that the group that was there was a visiting group. So, you know, the communication, interaction was good. One of the things I remember, too, we know that Lamborghini and these cars, Ferrari, come from over there. You could hear the French name. And there was a street we drove down, and on your left and on your right were just sports car stores. You look left, Ferrari, Lamborghini. You look right, just cars, fancy cars. And so, beautiful place. They have what I call the Seine River. When you take a tour on that river, you're passing under some very nice arches that have silver arches, gold arches. They have lions and all kind of designs and decorations on them. So every now and then when I remember that, it's really nice. It was a beautiful trip.
Awesome.
Paris, France.
And when we're going, he's going to be our tour guide. Sister, what's a happy place for you? What comes to mind?
Okay, like Brother Dor, somewhere that I visited was Venice, and I fell in love with it. Anybody who knows me know I love the water, and so it's just surrounded by water. You have the water taxi, you have the garage, but the garage don't have cars, it's boats. I saw mahogany boats and all of those. It was just a beautiful place, and the excursion we took that day that I was there, we got to see how they actually formulate the little villages from the water. They took us to different stages, places where you have different stages from just a little hump from the sea, and then the next one where they're building up, and the next one, and it was really fascinating to me. Yeah.
Awesome. So we have memories of the kitchen, of the food, of mommy. We have memories of Paris, France. We have memories of Venice, Italy. All of those are what you would call a memorable experience. And you're going to hear me say this word over and over and again, and I want it to kind of stick in your mind. An experience is the most impactful thing that you can experience, pun intended. So what we're going to talk about today is the church experience, what it feels like as a member, a visitor, even someone who's in the administration, someone who's a church pastor, a church director. So click with me now. So we want to use tools and tech. There we go. We want to use tools and tech of communications to enhance the reach and effectiveness of the church. And that's the whole plan. But to get there, I wanted to set some time and talk about church experience elements. So one of the first things is member retention. Read with me. It's significantly more resource intensive to attract new members than it is to retain existing ones. When you foster a sense of community and belonging, you can keep hold of your congregation strong. So what this is saying is every time we do a crusade, every time we do a revival, there's a lot of energy and resource and time and sleep deprivation, for everybody who knows what I'm talking about, that goes into a crusade. But even though we do all of that work, it doesn't guarantee that we're going to actually recruit new members. That's the Lord's work. But our work could be in retention, where we try to keep people from leaving the church, where we try to make sure our members are happy, are comforted, are ministered to. So, according to a report from Christian Post, 82% of members who drop out of the church do so in the first year of their membership. So even though we get a new member, 82% of them may leave in the first year. So it's about retention. Member satisfaction, there's a little delay. A fully engaged and satisfied member contributes significantly more to the church community in terms of tithe, participation, and spreading the word than somewhat engaged member. And if anyone remembered the survey that we did, we kind of discussed some of the issues that our members feel. Experience impact. A large majority of congregation members value the overall experience, including the sense of community, spiritual guidance, and support, more than specific factors like locations and service times. This is where when you go to, I used this before, ba-na-ba-ba-ba. I'm loving it, right? So no matter where you go in this world, if you walk into a McDonald's, you know the smell of the fries, the burgers, the chicken nuggets. Nobody's eating the burgers, right? We eat the fish fillet. So that's because no matter where you are, once you walk into a McDonald's, you get that experience. So it should be the same way that no matter which SDA church you walk into, you have that SDA church experience. Negative experience. After one negative experience, a significant portion of congregation members might stop attending the church or participating in its activities. I don't think I have to explain too much of that. Word of mouth. Members who have a very positive experience at your church are more likely to continue attending and recommend your church to their friends and relatives. Am I speaking truth, church? Okay, good. The digital experience. The quality of the digital experience, such as online services, community forums, and digital resources, is becoming a key differentiator for churches, especially in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. What does that mean? A national survey of evangelical churches found that 65% of churches have seen a decline in giving. But almost half of the churches say their online viewing has grown to double or more than their in-person attendance. If anybody remember what I said this morning in Sabbath school, the biggest church in the world is not in the pews, it's online, right? So this shows the growing importance of digital experiences in maintaining and growing church congregations. Forgive me, the internet's a little wonky. Social media. Many congregation members and potential visitors might share their experiences where? On social media. And a significant portion of people read these before deciding to visit or join a church. I'm going to make this very relevant right now. Who reads a review before buying anything on Amazon? Who looks up something before they purchase it? Period. Amazon, it doesn't matter. People do the same thing when it comes to experiences. Before you go and book your next trip, don't you go check it out? Don't you see where you want to go? Check out the car rental place, make sure the hotel isn't nasty, you read the reviews. People do the same with churches. So if our online presentation is not as welcoming as our in-person presentation, guess what happens? They're not going to come. Member loyalty. A significant portion of a church community engagement and support comes from its existing members. Fostering these relationships is crucial. Member service. A single instance of poor service, such as a negative interaction with church staff or volunteers, can cause members to consider finding a new church. Do we all have horror stories of someone telling us they would never come back to Central Seventh-day Adventist Church or any Seventh-day Adventist church because of some of those negative experiences? I have. I met a co-worker that when she found out I was Adventist, she's like, oh, that's nice. I'll never go back to your church ever again in life. Because I felt ostracized and unwelcome and people looked down on me. And here's a brand new person telling me to a church I just belong to, they'll never enter the doors because of that one experience. Personalization. Members are more likely to engage with a church that provides personalized experiences, such as tailored spiritual guidance, small group opportunities, and personalized communication. I'm pretty sure everybody in this church has a golden memory of somebody in this church making an impact in their lives. And I could point to Sister Ada Lou Fleming for those who are young enough to be underneath her gentle arms and loving care. She has touched many, many children and how they look at God and the church. So this is their impact story, is Sister Fleming. And the same goes for everybody who has been in this church. There's a person that made the difference. That's that tailored spiritual guidance that even though the church as a whole can do, individual members really take up that responsibility. A shout out to my spiritual father right there, Brother Rock. Thank you. All right. So this is from our own data. 68%, sorry, you can't see it because of my thing in the way. Let me try and move it. They agree to strongly agree that the church is responsible for their spiritual growth. That's almost 70% of this congregation is saying that the church is responsible for their spiritual growth, which means as a church, we always have to be showing our best foot forward. We need to be loving each other. We need to be ministering to each other. But also in the same thread, we need to guarantee that the church experience is engaging. So, to get to that, Central Communications Department has put together a small vision of what we think could be impactful to the church. And with that, we have training sessions in mind, planet personnel and logistics, campus enhancement, broadcasting, website, service experience, member experience, and ministry support. And hopefully the little preamble helps you to understand where some of these elements are coming from. Training sessions. We have already begun doing some audio training and video training where our camera operators are going to hone their craft, the audio people are going to hone their craft. Also, you saw today we had a little bit of a membership training. We discussed PowerPoints and presentation and copyrights. But we also want to do departmental trainings where we educate and show the department leaders how to use technology like Canva, Zoom, how to use microphone etiquette when they're on the platform, attire. For CCOM specifically, we're looking at creating a better schedule for our operators. We want to adjust how we do the bulletin internally so it's more accessible externally, as well as do more social media engagement. One of the most impactful things you could do online is talk to people in real time. When there's a chat going on and people are saying, praise the Lord and amen, or I need somebody to pray for me, if there's an elder or someone in the church that's trained to be on that platform with that person, that's that one-to-one social media, ministry that really captivates them and can usher them into our church. Campus enhancements. So what we want to be able to suggest is that we need to be a branded church. And what that means is, So you know what the yellow and the red stands for, you know the arches, you know Ronald McDonald, you know the brand. You know the brand of McDonald's anywhere you go. Coca-Cola, Nike. What that does is you don't have to sell Nike to somebody. They already know what it is because they've done an amazing job of telling the world who they are, what they stand for, what their product is, the quality. That's what it means to be a branded church. Our mission is not just to portray a good experience, but to live that experience for others. So that includes things like signage, refreshments, safety and hazard signs, building signs, entrance and exit signs, so that when you come into the campus, you feel welcomed and visually you see the difference. And what that looks like is we have a couple of examples. Right now, if you look at most modern church stages, they're not empty anymore. Anybody watch Doug Batchelor? Show of hands. Have you seen his stage? His stage has information on it. So every time the camera goes on him at any angle, there's either a message about the last days here or a sign about what he's talking about today, or just maybe a brand that says amazing facts. So our stage could have information on it so that when they're on the video, they're on the stream, they're constantly seeing some type of information. The platform design, we could do a little bit with the platform design. We have a technical problem with our cameras and our operators. There are only so many ways you can capture the same image, and I have to go on a platform to do this. So if we have an amazing speaker who likes to walk, and we've had a couple of them this year, anytime they get on this side of the platform, and that camera takes that nice, passionate shot of them talking to the congregation, you know what they see in their mind's eye? The exit sign. They see the exit sign. And the reason for that is because we don't have anything that kind of hides this cut off of the stage. We have the same problem over here. So that when someone's reading from the screen or they're doing something passionate over here, they kind of run off the edge and you see this weird spot. So some of these things we could put on the sides and design something that showcases Central or the Adventist logo, and it'll make our story a little bit more visually appealing. Our foyer, we have a lot of space. Let's do something amazing. So I'm going to show you guys a couple images of other examples, but this is a foyer redesign. Now what you notice that there are 2 TV screens that are constantly playing messages, whether that's announcements, whether that's information about upcoming events or revivals. This one's really important. So when I talk about a branded church, it's information. I want you for a second to go back to McDonald's in your mind. Don't you notice they tell you about the burger even though you had it 1,000 times? Don't you notice they tell you about the toy even though you had it 1,000 times? Don't you notice they tell you things even though you know it, they're still telling it to you. You know why? Repetition is king. You have to memorize them. So what you see here is God at work, outreach, pray, give, go, be a part of God's story. All of this information, while to us might be boring, to a visitor, they'll stop and say, oh, this is how Central wants me to be a part of God's story. Oh, long-term partners, short-term projects. Oh, these are some of the projects they have coming up. Maybe I should donate to them. Next one. So there's a little lag between my computer. Restrooms. So you know exactly where you're going. We have tiny little signs telling us where some of the most important parts of our church are. So we need to kind of like increase the visual. Go ahead. Losing anybody? You still with me? Okay. So this is what could Johnny at? Merch. You gotta love that merch. T-shirts, signage, banners for the community, things that you could put at the entrance, brochures, banners again, more brochures. All of this is what you call your branded items. And as an Seventh-day Adventist church, we already have logos and copyrighted imagery that we can use to create most of these items. So when you have people going out in the street, they should be wearing our T-shirt. We shouldn't only have to wear our AY T-shirts once a month or our community services polo every 2 months when we have a program. These could be things we wear on a regular. Come election time, we know who's going to win because they're wearing the T-shirts, right? Okay, well, we should have our own merch too. Next one. So for broadcasting, we want to do some fun things. We want to re-envision how we look online. Anybody watch Oakwood Church online? Oakwood, right? One of the most popular Adventist church in North America, right? You see all the nice visuals they have, the service elements. They have their host. Their website is really popular. On their website, I don't have it pulled up, they have a merchandise button where you can click to buy their merch. They're with it. My presenter gave up on me. So for that, not only do we want to redo the composition of how we broadcast online, we want to create more content so that just like Hope Channel or Three Angels, you can watch Central 24/7. So that's going to require us to do some partnerships with WGOD, Hope Media, and the other churches to get more content. It's 2023, folks. We don't have a website. We need a website. The website is your digital house. That's where people go to look at you, to read about you, to know more about you. So we need to create a website, but we want to do it collectively, not as a one-off. So it has to connect with all the branding, the imaging, the messaging that we want to say to people. For our church experience, we have a couple suggestions. Maybe some more monitors, some more live children's corner. I think everybody misses the live children's corner. And we want to look at kind of like the format of our service, in-house services for Sunday and Wednesday night. I'm not trying to start anything, I'm just saying. For the members and visitors, we want to be able to give them the bulletin. We want to have WhatsApp. Show of hands who's on WhatsApp, and don't even try and say you don't have WhatsApp. Okay, everybody that get them messages WhatsApp. Sister Foster, you don't have WhatsApp? I will point you out, thank you. So one of the things we can do, and I actually helped Brother Gittins this morning, we could be sending you the bulletin on WhatsApp. We could send it to your phone, so you don't have to open an email. You don't have to wait for someone to send it to you. We as a church can use that tool to reach everybody in the church. That's on WhatsApp. We can use QR codes. In the foyer in the lobby, we can have a prayer area. I'm going to circle back to that. A refreshment area, a visitor check-in information center. For our internal ministries, we want to have Zoom accounts, Gmail accounts, use the full Google Suite. We want to be able to use Canva and StreamYard. These are just internal tools that's going to make everybody's lives easier. My other communication folks, I hope y'all hearing me preach the good word. We can have technology inside, I know. So what those platforms do, we would need a corporate account for Zoom. For StreamYard, it helps us stream things a little easier that don't require a lot of like manpower with Wirecast. So say AY has a program that they want to stream, but they don't want to have to physically come to church. They could do that online. If Singles Ministry has a good program they want to stream, they could just click it through, and a CCOM member online could host it, but we don't physically have to come to the church. Wix, Canva is the site that we can use to make all of our flyers and banners and documents, and then Wix could be the site that we use to host our website. We had a timeline for some of these initiatives. It got pushed back, but basically we had three main phases. First was to do the trainings. The second was to start the church branding and the work. And then the third phase was to roll out with everything and launch ourselves to the community. Tell the people, hey, we have a new website. Hey, we have new social media. Hey, did you know we have flyers? Hey, you know we got t-shirts. Hey, you should come to the church. We have a whole new different redesign. So I don't know if these are going to play in the house when I click them, Robert. So I'll go past. My wife and I were having dinner. I had to ask my presenter to help me again. So my wife and I were having dinner last year in a shopping mall somewhere in Orlando, and we saw this big sign that said Mosaic. And when we walked through the doors, it was a church inside of a shopping mall. And it was a friendly church. It was 9 o'clock on a Wednesday night. People were still there, talking, just enjoying themselves. And what was amazing is when we looked at the layout, it said so much. Remember all the things I talked about? This church does. This is their welcome center. You see information over there? That's their main sanctuary. Don't get jaded. I'm not triggering anybody with coffee. Just put juice on top of that juice bar. And then you see Mosaic. Look all the way up there. Sanctuary, restrooms, Mosaic Kids, so you know where to go. Click. Now, I'm say, I'm loving it. Branded, Mosaic, Mosaic, Mosaic. Love God's, love people, serve the world. On each of these little signs here, they're telling you how to connect with their church, what to expect from their church, how to be involved with their church. And then you see signage. They have a tithe offering collection right there. There's a sign to tell you where you're going. Next one. Just click. Okay. So this way is the mix. So when you go into the mix now, go ahead. Oh, we come into the mix. Leave it right there. So they have a little sanctuary just for children and mixed media. This blew me away. Outside their main sanctuary is a prayer corner. And it says, "Good morning. We are part of the prayer team, and we meet here every Sunday to pray for the gatherings, the people of Mosaic," that's the name of the church, "and any requests we receive throughout the week. If you need prayer or would like to join us, please let us know. We would love to pray with you." So 2 elements. Branded, see the signage, the colors, the language, and then the accommodation. So when you're walking in their sanctuary, before you get to their sanctuary, if you need prayer or you hear people praying, you can just sit down and an elder or deacon will pray with you. Our foyer has more than enough space to make that a reality. Amen? Amen. And we do 2 things. One, we allow people to mentally and spiritually walk into the house of God. Walking into the house of God should not happen when you sit down in the pew. It should happen from the time you bust the doors. And when you hear prayer happening, it resets your brain to realize, I'm not here to see my friends and family members. And if you remember the survey, that's the number 1 reason why people come into church. Okay? So, and that's the first thing. The second thing it does, for visitors, it helps them feel like they're in a safe space, that I came to the right place, that they're not here overhearing gossip and melee on the Sabbath morning. They're here hearing people wailing their heart's desires to the Lord, and someone who's seasoned in prayer praying for them. Keep going. We need to do that. Building committee members, I don't know if you're in here, prayer team, okay? This is their mixed media center. Think of it as their youth center. They have chairs, lights, a little stage, and this is where they have all their smaller functions where the youth can go and play, where the youth can stream their events. So you just imagine that same rec center, and this is not expensive. These are Home Depot can lights, and all my mechanics and construction guys should know what I'm talking about. Them little $5 can lights in Home Depot that they just tie together with a C-stand. Go ahead. That's it. So that's about it. We had a video to show you of what that church looks like, but because of the internet, I won't get into that. Any questions, comments?
So how do we go about getting that I'm just asking, how do we go about getting that done? Since we have the facility to get it done, so how do we go about actually getting it done instead of just talking about it?
So, any board members in the house, raise your hands. Don't be shy. Okay, what the board needs to do, because it has to come through the board, it's an organizational change of mind. The board has to say, okay, we want to create a visual mission for the church. We want to create a brand for the church. We want to have a church member experience strategy. I'm using words. But all of that is basically to say is we need a plan. So we have to sit together as a church and plan for it. There are items that do require some money because you have to pay for the materials to do those things. But most of it is just thinking. We need to sit down and figure out what should be the message that everybody can say when we go out there and say Central. Ba-da-bum-bum-bum. Okay, once again, I'm loving it will always come out of someone's mind when I ask them about McDonald's. When I say, tell me about Central, is there one unified message we can say? We'll say a family of families, but unless we put more meat to that and make it a concept and an actionable phrase, I'll give you an example. Central, a family of families where we're not afraid to treat you like our own. You know? Central, a family of families where we welcome you as one of our own. So it has to have an action with it. So we need a message that we need to figure out. We need to figure out our visual layout, like what our foyer should look like, what images we should put as part of the backdrop, you know, what our social media should look like. Where's Kajani? Come here, Kajani. I'm going to borrow Kajani for a while. So, when you see a young person, and I don't like keep saying young person because I feel like it's, you know, separating us. When you see a person like Kajani, you think Kajani's always on social media, which he is. He doesn't let go of his phone, which he doesn't. But the beautiful thing about Kajani is that Kajani is going to replace me, and I'm going to replace somebody, because the way life works is we go this way. We're going this way. So I know this morning there was a little bit of a friction with the bulletins, but I want us to think about it like this. What Central are you leaving behind for me to leave behind for him? So if you're not giving me Central, I can't give it to him, which means I'm going to go. And then when he sees me going, why should he stay? So the plan is not just to help us visually look good. It's to create that binding message and method of how we treat each other and how we engage with each other, so that as you pass Central on to me, I can take it and hold on to it and pass it to him. Thank you. But the long story short is we need a plan, so the board needs to come together and say, hey, we need a plan. Let's talk about it, think about it, and execute it. Any other questions? If there are no questions, I come into my colleagues back there. I got a couple questions for y'all. You know, don't hide.
You mentioned you don't have to be there to stream a program. So do you have to pre-record?
So kind of like Zoom. Remember when the NCC did a lot of like Zooms and they would put it on Facebook and social media? StreamYard allows us to have more of a podcast feel, where it's not necessarily Zoom with the black and the grid. You could put backgrounds, you could put your branded logos, you could put your stuff. So it looks like something affiliated and created by the church, but we don't physically have to come to church to record that, to run it through the system to make it look good. We could just do it online with StreamYard.
I like that prayer corner
I love the prayer
suggestion.
corner. I love it.
think it would change the whole atmosphere, as you said, when you enter the doors from the outside. You know, right now it's noisy in the foyer, but I think when people see that, it would definitely change the atmosphere. So thank you for that suggestion.
Yeah, I love that idea. Building committee, I'm calling on you. Prayer ministries, worship committee, any other committee I could name to kind of drop that seed. Elder?
I think you made a statement that since after the COVID, church attendance has dropped, and visual has increased. Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah. When the visual attendance has dropped, the giving has dropped also.
Yes.
So my question is, what can we do, or how can we reach those who are seeing, contribute to the program of the church? I don't know if we have a plan for that also. I don't know how is the giving from those who do the program.
Online giving is a major tool of any organization. My wife works in fundraising for many, many years, and she can tell you that online giving can outmatch and beat out any in-person giving. So to your point, Bruds, it's creating a plan so that our visual look makes sense, it connects with people, it touches their heart, and then we ask of them to be a member with us. I'm gonna go to Oakwood. You guys still seeing my screen? Okay. So if I go to Oakwood, we're not doing anything new, you know. I'm just letting you know. We're not doing anything new. Okay, you see that? Would you like to show notifications for the latest news and updates, right? That means they're going to give me all them annoying pop-ups. So this is Oakwood. And when you scroll down, what do you see? 3 things I want you to really pay attention to. And it's not the about us. It's not Oaktown. This is beautiful. Prayer request. We're not going to minimize that. But these 3 things. Connect. E-member. Be an electronic member of Oakwood. No matter where I live, I can say Oakwood is my home church. Donate. Give tithe and offering. Shop our online store. So once we have a good online house, we can ask people to come to that house and donate to that house, connect with us in that house, or even wear our merch. So once we have a plan to be online and we execute it well, people will donate and give, and our website could be that platform. I hope I answered your question. Any other questions? I have to pick on people now, okay? Please hand the mic over to Miss Octavia. Run away from me. It's all right. I'll find you. Come, Octavia. Yep, that's why I'm waiting for you. Thank you. Give the mic to her. So, you have a question?
Yes, from Sunny Acres. We sometimes have internet drop. The internet drop on us, especially like when the weather, and sometimes we are losing people. How would your ideas here would help to contribute and help me in Sunny Acres to bring up that problem? We had to change our internet base over there for a stronger speed to see if we could stay more competitive for our church. And do that, we are mostly more on the, pardon me to say, senior level. We are bringing up youngsters now, but they're not ready yet church-wise, spiritually on that side, but we are trying hard. So we are coming up there, but one of my biggest challenge since the COVID is internet.
Okay.
What ideas can you give me to correct over there as well as Campo Rico?
So you said 2 things. One, your internet's dropping and you're losing people.
Yes.
I think you did the first thing, which was try to increase your bandwidth. But before I go down that techie trail, I want to jump into the second question. Where are you losing people? In the pews or online?
Actually, on both.
On both?
Yeah, on both.
Okay. So if we execute a plan that's focused on member experience and visitor experience, not only do you start to retain your members and bring back your members, if they're coming back, they're not new, they're old. So it's still retention. But in that retention, now because of word of mouth, hey, come to me. Come with me to Sunny Acres. Sunny Acres is different. I come back to church. And you know me, I was telling you, I'm never going back to that church, but I'm back now. So your members that you're retaining help you to be advocates to those who want to come. The second thing is, when you have a visitor experience strategy, you make them feel so welcome, they in turn tell people, Mommy, I went to Sunny Acres, I had such a wonderful time, I think you should come with me. So that is a very big gap that we have right now. The 1-2 visitors that come in, if they're not amazed by the experience, not just the singing and the praising, the whole the experience, they will not advocate to their other people that they should come. So 1, that experience plan will help. 2, the internet, I'm going back on the techie side, you might have an upload versus a download problem. So internet works like a 2-way street, cars going up, cars going down. Download is information coming to your computer. And most ISPs like to sell you big download speeds, which is nice. But for us, we're uploading information. And this is where most ISPs catch you. You might have a big number on the down and a small number on the up. All of these devices require a minimum bandwidth for upload. So if you're not having at least 10, 15, 20 megabytes on the upload, I know y'all hearing me back there, and I'm singing our song. If you're not on that upload speed, you will constantly chop out. So what I would say to you is, next time you're at church, do a speed test. do a speed test. If you have Brother Beresford's number, my number, just send us the results, and we could tell you if you have enough or not. Okay? Anybody else? I want to talk to my other CCAMP. Oh, go ahead.
Good afternoon. I don't have a question, I have a comment. I want to say I really appreciate what was presented. It shows great thought and a level of research as well. There's a lot of talk about what has happened post-COVID, how membership has declined, especially with the younger ones, and we realize some people really do not want to come back to church. And I see a lot of what you have there address many aspects of it, and I think it's really solid. I really like the concept of being more visual and having a message posted at all times. So I just wanted to comment.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, going to my CCAM folks. One more? I forget what I know. So the reason why the other CCAM, the other communications people are here is because we're not alone in these same struggles. And I want to dialogue with them real quickly so that you can hear it's a church, not our church. It's a church issue that we need to overcome. Go ahead, sis.
Good afternoon, church. As Sayyida Lou said about the prayer, that was the first thing that got my attention. I love that. But what I'm asking, what you said about the board, I know you have influence in that. How soon, and are you going to bring it up so that we can start working on that very soon?
I'm not a board member this term, folks.
No, you are not a board member, but you are the one. I feel with you having this plan, you all have to bring it up to the pastors, and then that's where it moved then to the board and so forth. It's not just the board. Let's say we go to the board meeting and say, I just come up and say something. I don't think that has too much weight.
Okay.
What do I have to support that? Just say a few words.
So I will say it like this. Gidel, our communications director, has this exact same thing. And he can sit down with all the individual members of the board. But the reason why I'm saying the board is pivotal in this is because it's an organizational plan and the organization has to execute it. So now if the board decides, hey, we want to do something like this, they can ask me and I will come and be a consultant, spearhead, or help them if they form the committee. You could form a special committee that says, hey, this committee's sole focus is to elevate the experience of Central Church. And we could all sit down together, we can go over this plan, we could make tweaks, but it has to come from the board because then the church has to vote on this. Because you're saying officially, this is our slogan, these are our colors, this is what we say online, this is what we do online. So we can't just do that in a one-to-one situation. It has to be an organized and executed plan. I hope that answers your question.
Just to add to what you were saying, and my understanding is that much of what you're sharing with us today, the communication department has sort of been trying to push that since the first quarter of the year. And the communication department at various times have tried to present this to the board, to the leadership of the church. This is the third time out I know that they've sort of come to the congregation with it. So it's just not getting the kind of traction that it needs because apparently the right people are not hearing or not, imbibing the message. So I'm pleased to hear you, one of the key members on the board advocating for it, and hopefully, something will happen after this.
Any more? Sister Faye? Hold on, you need to say that on the record with the microphone, because you're saying the right words. Curtis, I love you, brother. Inside joke, I love you.
Yeah, what you're saying has to be a part of the church's strategic plan.
Absolutely.
And so right now, we're looking for members to provide input or to form a strategic planning committee. Once this information goes to the committee, then we can move forward, because there's a lot of things that the church want to do. And like you say, if we don't plan and plan properly, it is not going to get done.
Thank you. Anybody else? I have Elder Charles over here. One second, Elder, you got to get on the record, you know. Like, hold on, the mic coming.
Yes, my question to you, have you done an initial cost analysis for a project like that?
So you want the actual price or the church price? Which one?
Well, you want a price because if you want to do a presentation to the board, having an initial cost of a project like that would be helpful in helping the board make a decision.
Okay. So I'll give you my professional answer first, and then I'll give you my church answer second. I do this for a living. This is what I do. That's why, sister, you see the level of research. My company, we do marketing and customer engagement and experience engagement for businesses. So a plan of this magnitude, if I said the actual price, everybody would start flinching, because you're looking at an institutional strategy, which is not the same as, say, just someone's Facebook page. This could run you 10,000 or more easily, just in a certain aspect. A website, I'm sharing inside knowledge. We still streaming? Okay. A pastor from a different church called me for a quote for a website, and I sent him a link so that he could do the research for himself. A small church website can run you $2,000 to $5,000 a pop. Small church website. That's not to include social media strategy, branding of print materials, content design, brand guides. I think we quoted 5. Was about $10,000 for a brand guide. So it's up there. My church response is to say, Lord, have thy way with me. I'm a willing servant. But what I ask in exchange for my time is commitment. I will not stop losing sleep for a church that's not ready to move forward. And I do the same thing with my clients. I can't force you to move forward. So what I'm saying is that I can negotiate a very, very small price, but it requires total church buy-in. And when I mean buy-in, we argue and agree as much as it takes so that at the end of that time, we have a plan and we're marching forward. Without any last-minute detractions or detours, we're moving full steam ahead. Because, Ella, what I'm saying to you in oh so many words is that it doesn't matter how much money we spend on it. If we don't execute it, it's a waste. And that's the problem. It will be a waste. So I could sit down with the committee or the board and create a budget for what it looks like, because all of these services, I don't provide all of them personally. Professionally, I can through other vendors, so we can sit there. But objectively, 10,000 and up. 10,000 and less is the mercy of God. 10,000 and up is market value. Of course. Here's the catch. You cannot do a brand makeover and release it in stages. That's the catch. So your website, your social media, your WhatsApp, your images, all of that has to happen in a unified fashion. Because what you're doing is you're basically launching a campaign. So it's almost like you're having a revival, and you tell them 1 week who's the presenter, but you don't tell them the team until 2 weeks later. The people are disjointed. When you're having a revival, correct me if I'm wrong, presenter, date, time, theme, location, all of that has to go out on the same materials, the same radio ads, the same pamphlets and flyers. So when you're looking at a coordinated effort, it all has to march out together. You want to make one big loud bang. The planning and how you pay for those elements to be drafted can be done in stages, like you're building a house. You know, the electrician could do this, the mason could do that, but when it's time for the grand opening, everything has to be ready. Question? Did I answer you? Years? No, bro. We do this in 2 months. This is digital. All we need is laptop and don't sleep. We knock this out.
And an initial cost will be helpful so that the board can understand, well, this is what we have to get into. And I think that is important to help in making a decision.
So what I do is I sit down with my client and I ask them, what are their goals? What are you trying to achieve with this strategy? What assets do you currently have? What platforms do you currently have? So what first needs to happen is you need to sit down and do an audit of what you have, what you don't have, what you want your end result to look like, and then plan it out. So it's like you going to the architect and say, I want a 2-bedroom house with a cistern and a dog shed. He's going to be like, you got to tell me more, because that could run anywhere from $10,000 to $100,000 when you put a gold chandeliers and a Trump Tower sign. So I'm saying is that I can give you a ballpark, 10,000 and up easily, but to really find out the details, you have to sit with the client because you're building something that's both organic and authentic, and that takes time. Any other questions? Pastor, glad to see you. Pastor, glad to see you. Don't run away from me, you know. Thank you, glad to see you. Anybody else? Any other questions? Okay, good. I finally get them. So, my other communications directors. Somebody get them a mic, please. Am I singing the song sheet for Ayo? Am I crazy? What's your experiences? The red mic.
You're not singing a song that we're not accustomed to. One of the things that our issue is, how do you make those changes in a church that is so conservative, where the slightest change of how you pick up the offering becomes the talk of the day, or how the song service was conducted becomes an issue because they don't think we should sing Jehovah is your name and we should sing Rescue the Perishing instead. How do you deal with those changes when your congregation is 99.9% over the age of 60 and you don't have young people to train? So what do we do? This may not necessarily be the case. This team here is District 3. This may not necessarily be the case at one church, but at the other church, that's the case. And so what we're trying to do is to rally together to try to make a difference by sharing the responsibility whenever we can. But it's tough making changes because, as far as we know, Adventist churches don't like change. It's a known fact. We don't like change. And in churches where they believe that it has to be rescue the perishing and how great thou art, and no, Jehovah is your name, what do you do?
So that goes to a cultural issue or a cultural mindset. And I think the best way to approach that is to sit down with those senior members and ask them, what brings you to church? What's the reason you come to church? What are your emotional ties to this church? Because it might be they feel that these changes are attacking those things that they hold dear. But unless you find out what those actual emotional sentiments are, you can't plan around them. You can't plan over them, and you definitely ain't planning through them. So what I would say to you is you need to have a real family table conversation with senior members and have it to the point where you understand what are the absolute do not touch this in my church mentalities that's still there. Because if we can do that, then we can see it and say, but I'm not touching the tithe offering plate. I actually want to make it better. And you can start to have those conversations with them. So one of the things we did in Central is we did a church member survey. And we surveyed everybody that we could and found out what were the real issues preventing the church from moving forward, some of the struggles that we had, and some of the information was mind-blowing. One of the ones that till this day still floors me, the number one reason why Centralites come to church It's not for the word of God. That was one of the bottom reasons. It wasn't because it's Sabbath. That was one of the bottom reasons. The number one reason they come to church is for fellowship. Above all things, is fellowship. But then we asked them in the second breath, what's the biggest problem in the church? And they said, church members. Over 48% said it's church members. Church members is the reason why the church ain't working. So I sat back as a data guy and started to scratch my head. I'm like, we're coming to church because we want to be around each other, but we don't like church because everybody that here that I don't like. So there's an emotional conflict happening in our church that we need to resolve. But the pastor, the prayer ministry, none of them could fix something that they don't understand. So you need to go back to your church, sit down with your pastor and say, hey, we need to get to the bottom of some of the cultural issues, the emotional stresses and strains, and then work your way up from there. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Would you be willing to share that survey with us so we can try it down at our churches?
Yes, I will share the instrument with you. You might have to ask my pastor for the results, but I'll share the instrument with you.
No, we don't need the results.
Okay.
We just want
So
to
I'll
do
share
the
the
survey
instrument,
itself.
but I will say one thing. You still need to tweak it for your church.
No problem.
Okay, so we could sit down and I will hash that out with you.
Okay, the next question is, well, similar to the first one. We were tasked with coming up with a live stream package for our churches because neither Faith nor Bethel, well, Faith has one, but Bethel doesn't, and we're trying to revamp our live stream. The first thing that I got hit with was the cost. Why y'all want to spend so much money? The church got so many other things to do. People sick, y'all can't give them the money, but y'all want to spend so much money to live stream. But you want us to live stream. You want the messages to go out, so what do we do?
So, it's an investment. It's an investment. The same way the church will invest in a new parking lot, a new foyer, AC, it's an infrastructure investment. That's the best way to understand it. It is not a after-the-fact investment. It's not something that adds to the bells and whistles. Communication, live streaming is a core operation of the church now. We don't have a choice to think of it as something that's not necessary. Because if we truly want to impact those that are in the pew that can't be in the pew, let's talk about the sick and the shut-in. We all like to talk about sick and shut-in, right? How else are they supposed to see it? We can't call them on the phone and tell them how church was. Or we can. Or if we have an actual live stream, we can ensure that our sick and our shut-in, our traveling members can stay connected to that church. So one, it serves an immediate ministry need. Thank you. So I'm going to read some facts to you guys. This is ammunition for your board. So I asked two young ladies to help me find facts and figures about online giving and online charity when it comes to the church. 49% of all church giving transactions are made with a card. So that means we're behind the curve, all right? I can't swipe a card in my envelope. 8 out of 10 people who give to churches have zero credit card debt. That's a fun one. 60% are willing to give to their church digitally. So now that's something we need to take home. 60% of church members are willing to do it online. You see Oakwood had their online giving, right? Churches that accept, Pastor, hi Pastor, let me come close. You know me, I foolish. Pastor, come close to your brothers. Read this one with me. Churches that accept tithing online increase overall donation by 32%. Yeah. Hear that?
Yeah, 32%.
32%. Okay. Faye, you hear that one back there? Okay, good. Okay, thank you so much. So it's not just an argument to spread the word. It's also an argument to have tithing be the active part of ministry that it is and allow them an online platform. So you can go back to your church and say, hey, not only does this help us spread the message, it helps people connect back with us, both with their tithes and offering, as well as their input and their prayers. But you got to have a heart-to-heart conversation with your church members.
It's really important that we do. So when you come to have the discussion with us, remember the invitation is coming as
You see
well.
Octavia smiling, she will call me.
Yeah, because
immediately.
we planning to make it a district thing. And for us to be able to grow our district in the right direction, these are some of the hardcore things that we need to deal with because we have a very conservative congregation. And so when, and I'll share this, when Bethel introduced the praise team, listen, we got some weeping because we went there and did a totally different type of song service. And so those changes don't come easy. It takes a lot of planning. It takes a lot of educating to ensure that members understand what direction the church is moving into. We're not going back to 1970, and we're not taking away from the sanctity of the service when we do what we do. We're simply making improvements so that our church will stand out in the way it is supposed to stand out.
Sister, you say nothing? You're going to call me and complain, you might as well talk to me now. So I'm teasing Octavia because she has called me so many times and said, Brother Dorsey, how can we fix this? How can we do this? I know she called on Brother Beresford as well. And I hope you're hearing, church, this is not just our problem. This is the problem that we have in our churches, is that we are not necessarily behind the times, we're outside of the times. And that puts us in a very dangerous spot. Because if we stay stagnant, anybody know what happened to stagnant water? Okay then. Anything else? Anybody else? Curtis? All right. So thank you so much. If anybody needs any additional anything, you can always find me. Hope you all have a happy and blessed week.
So we'd like to thank Elder Dorsey for delivering such a solid and profound, and may I even dare say thought-provoking presentation this afternoon. It is said that change and innovation begins with a conversation, and I believe the conversation has started, and based on your responses, I would say that the seed was planted this evening, and hopefully in the very near future we will see a change. All right? We'll now have our Vesper presentation by Brother Kajani Reynolds.
Good evening. I know y'all probably tired of answering and hearing questions, but I have one more for you. Well, two more. We have Communications Day today, and I don't think anybody mentioned the definition. So what do y'all think the definition of communication is? Just what we're doing? Okay, talking. Okay, sharing. Sharing or listening. Well, the definition of communication really just runs down to imparting or exchanging of information, news, feeling, thoughts, whatever. So yes, what we're doing right now. And a second question, what was one of the first things that God did in the Bible? He spoke. He communicated. He said, let there be life. And there was light. So in the Bible, there are two books that begins with these certain set of words. In the beginning, God said. The most famous is Genesis. In the beginning, God said, let there be light. He spoke first, and then creation happened. He made himself known. He communicated. He communicated his awareness. In fact, Psalms 8, the great psalm of creation, says, what is man that thou art mindful of him? God is mindful of what he created. He spoke, and out of that speech, Out of that communication came all that exists. The other great book is in John's Gospel. John begins his Gospel in the same way. In the beginning was the Word. John Calvin translated John 1:1, in the beginning was the speech. The Greek word logos was used, but it's the Hebrew word for Genesis that John had in mind. God spoke at the beginning. He communicated. He decided and he made his will known. In the beginning was the Word. The Word is with God. The Word was God. All things were made by him. Soon we discovered that the eternal Word is Jesus Christ. John puts it this way: the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. Jesus Christ is not a part of creation. Rather, he was there with the Father in the beginning, and throughout him, creation occurred. So in the beginning, there was speech, there was communication, and the speech was with God, and all things were made through him. Sounds just like Genesis, doesn't it? And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we have beheld his glory, the glory of the only Son of the Father, full of grace and truth. There are two speeches. The first speech tells us of the doctrine of creation, and the second speech tells us of the coming of Christ, the Lord of creation who conquers death and sin, and the power of evil, who makes us into a new creation. That is the story that John will unfold in his gospel. Two great speeches of God tell the story. Between the two speeches, there is a journey which we call the Old Testament. The first books of the Old Testament are the books of Moses, and they were written over 1,000 years before Christ. But the story begins 600 years before Moses with the father Abraham. Most of the Old Testament is a journey that travels all the way in and through the story of real people who live in a real place alongside the Mediterranean Sea. That first story begins in Genesis, and going through the Old Testament narratives prepares us for the second speech, when the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, which we celebrate in Advent. Those of us who know the boy Jesus, who born and died for us, need also to know the first part of the story so that we may really understand the second part. A German pastor once said what he was writing to his old friend: I've been reading the Old Testament a lot recently. And he said that it was important for him to read the Old Testament because, as a matter of fact, we cannot hear the last word until we've heard the second to last word. We who live in our century need to read the second to last word to understand the last word. We need to journey from the doctrine of creation into the doctrine of redemption and of the fulfillment that we have in Christ. And in the beginning was communication. It begins in Genesis chapter 1. God speaks first. Information is at the beginning. Communication is at the beginning. Present-day scientists who study quantum physics have come to the very point because of recent evidence. It is a baffling phenomenon that nuclear physicists are working with, and is that electrons can communicate with each other at very fast distances. Maybe even at the speed of light, they're communicating with other electrons. And that's because the transfer of information is the most fundamental reality of nuclear physics and of creation. God communicated, and it came to be. We heard it first in Genesis. Information precedes mass and energy. In the beginning, God spoke, and there was light. He spoke and spoke first. Not only that, but God is mindful of what he creates. So we have the Genesis narrative, which is portrayed for us in epic terms of 6 days of creation. It is put in terms of 6 days of creation. This means that creation has a beginning and an ending. It happens in time and space. And notice after this creation of light, described in day 1, evening and morning, God called it good. And then the second day of creation occurs. The skies and the earth are formed. And in the third day of creation, there's further division of water and the land. And in the fourth day, the seasons are created, and he called these things good. In the fifth day of creation, the marvelous life of the seas are created. And at the end of that, day 5 is once again called good. By the way, in the Hebrew translation, the word good, tav, is the first word of love in the Old Testament Bible. God called it good. He liked it. He loved it. And then we come to the 6th day. In the 6th day, the creeping animals of the earth, all the created order of earth is created in the 6th day. Let the earth bring forth living creatures of every kind, cattle, creeping things, wild animals, and it was so. And God made the wild animals of every kind, and he saw that it was good. At last, God said, let us make Adam. Our text translates the word Adam as humankind, but the Hebrew word is Adam, because Adam is the generic word for man. Let us make man in our own image, according to our likeness, and let them, now he speaks in plural, have dominion. This word is the beginning of the freedom words of the Old Testament. Over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, over the cattle, and over every wild animal on the earth, every creeping thing that creeps on the earth. And so God created Adam in his image. His imprint is what the word means. God made us in his imprint. In the image of God, he created, and now it becomes plural again, male and female. He created them, and then he blessed them. At the end of the sixth day, the text says, and God said that everything that he had made, and indeed it was very good. Now it doesn't just say tav, but very good. It was very good. There was evening and there was morning. That's the Genesis account of creation. This creation narrative is not really a scientific description of how. It's a theological description of what, who, and why. It's a description about the meaning of it all. It's a description that doesn't really describe when or how he did it, but that he did it. It's the what of creation we hear affirmed in the Genesis account. It is also the who of creation, because the text focuses on God, on man, and woman. There's one more feature in these opening verses of chapter 1. It is a portrayal of God's opinion of what he created and his opinion of it all, that it was good. Well, this is the interesting things about the beginning of the Bible. The story begins in Genesis chapter 1 with communication, and its theme will journey with us throughout the entire Old Testament as a narrative of real people who lived in a real place with their ups, their downs, their strengths, their weaknesses, and their faith in God, their harmful choices, and their hopes too. Notice all we've learned from the markers in Genesis. We've learned, first of all, that God stands before it all. His truth, his word, how he communicates is first. We've learned that by God's decision, we are given freedom. That the word dominion, here is the beginning of the freedom that the Bible gives. But best of all, we've met the first of the love words of the Bible, tav, good. The one who first fashioned us is mindful of us and all of his creation, and he called us all good. And at the close of the sixth day, he called it all very good. God's love stands before us in everything. God is mindful of us, and he wants to communicate with us and through us. He loves us, and that starts it all off. Our Lord even added one more line to that mindfulness. Jesus says that his Father even cares about a sparrow that falls. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you for connecting the dots between communication and relating that to the creation story, and even giving us a different perspective on the story, bringing it to a whole different light. Thank you very much. At this time, we're going to have our closing activity. We will have the praise team lead us out with the closing song, and then Sister Amayalyn will do the closing prayer. I'd like to thank everyone who participated in this afternoon's program. God bless you.
So, our closing song will be Side by Side We Stand, Awaiting God's Command. Please stand. Side by side we stand, awaiting God's command, worshiping the saving King, living by his grace and moving on in faith. Jesus himself will see us through. Meet me in heaven, we'll
be there. Soldiers all are we to go where Jesus leads. We'll fight in faith and we will overcome. Heaven is our goal and saving every soul. Pray that we all will be there. Meet me in heaven, we'll join hands together. Meet me by the Savior's side. I'll meet you in heaven, we'll sing songs together. Brothers and sisters, I'll be there. Why don't you meet me in heaven? We'll join hands together. Meet me by the Savior's side. I'll meet you in heaven. We'll sing songs together. Brothers and sisters, I'll be there.
Praise the Lord, we all shall be there.
Praise the Lord, we all will be there.
Good evening. Bow your heads and close your eyes for prayer. Dear Clement and loving Father, I thank you for this Sabbath day. I thank you for bringing us to the eve of a new week. Oh God, I pray that you would help us to understand that you communicated to us and you continue to communicate to us. And the purpose for us communicating is for souls to be saved. I pray, Lord, that we will search our hearts, that we will not be in the way of your work, but that we will put our heads together and come to solutions to achieve the plan that you have for us, that one day we will meet all together in heaven. Be with us, protect us, guide and direct us. It's my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.